Hello, welcome everyone. Hi, good evening. Come on in. Welcome. Hi everyone, my name is Marjorie Betley. I am the Executive Director of the Small Town and Rural Students College Network. And we are really excited to have a very special webinar tonight, something that we have never done before. It's new and we're here to introduce it to you and to introduce some really important people to you who can answer a lot of your questions. So Emily, if you can go to the next slide for me. Perfect. If you are not familiar with the STARS College Network, we are a consortium of 32 different colleges and universities all across the US, all dedicated to creating better pathways for rural and small town students to access higher education. We work in the higher education realm, and we are now expanding and kind of joined by some of our friends on the other side of the desk on the high school and boarding school side of things. So that's really what we're going to be focusing on today, but I wanted to walk everyone through all of the options and resources that are available through STARS, and then introduce this new resource that is available for students. So if you want to go to the next slide, Emily, perfect. There's a lot of information available on our website, but I wanted to kind of be able to talk a little bit about each of these different things so that students know all of the different opportunities that are available to them. The first is also a newer initiative. It's our STARS College Advising Program. Looking at the students in the room, I know a few of you are involved in the STARS College Advising Program. This offers students comprehensive on-demand one-on-one advising throughout their high school career to help you kind of pick the schools that you're going to apply to, plan that list, fill out the actual application, apply for financial aid and scholarships. And so we partner with different high schools across the US to help students with that college advising piece. So very specialized in that way. Then we also offer a bunch of free fly-in and summer programs on different STARS college campuses. I'm going to plug, we have another webinar on January 6th where we're going to walk through all of the different opportunities that are coming up this year. Those do start as early as 9th grade. So there are fly-in and summer programs for 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and even starting the fall of your senior year. So we want to show you what that process is going to look like, what an application for a fly-in might look like, and then also show you some of the deadlines that are coming up and things to expect. So highly recommend that one. Please log in. Next up, you'll see on our resources page some links to Schoolhouse and Khan Academy. These are really good resources for students who maybe you aren't at a STARS College advising partner school, but you really want to challenge yourself. You feel like you're ready to take college level courses, or maybe your high school doesn't offer AP courses, or they don't offer the level of math or other courses that you're looking for. This is a really good way to supplement what is currently available at your high school through free online courses. So they're free, they offer tutoring, and there's also a certification process through Schoolhouse that is recognized by the STARS member schools. So you go through, you teach the material to someone else, and that's how you get certified. So it's not like your typical standardized test, it's a little different, but this way you can show mastery of the subject, and you can upload the transcript that you have from your Schoolhouse account to your college application. So you can show colleges and universities that you've also been practicing and working on these different subject areas. Scholarships and planning tools. We partner with the College Board to encourage students to apply for that national recognition program. There's a Small Town and Rural Students National Recognition Program where you can qualify for extra merit scholarships and money when it comes time to apply for school. This is a great opportunity that we want every student to take advantage of, and it also starts a little earlier than you might think it does. Starts in 10th grade, so you can start applying for that program in 10th and 11th grade. Then our newest opportunity, which is our boarding school initiative. This is really geared towards students in a lot of different age ranges, anywhere from 9th through 12th grade. And we have the experts here to walk us through what that will look like at those different age ranges if you're thinking about boarding school. So boarding school is a really unique opportunity. It's an immersive opportunity where you're going to live with some of your new best friends. You're going to learn really great, rigorous classes, and you're going to be really, it's an academic and social experience. So if you're kind of a little bit itching for college early, this is a really cool way to do that. I am not the expert, unfortunately, on boarding schools, but that's why we have everyone here today to walk you through all of your questions. So we are now going to transition over to Emily, who was one of our STARS College advisors, but she specializes in boarding school admissions. So if you were to look for support in applying to a boarding school or for financial aid at that boarding school, Emily is your person. This is the person who would really support you in that process. And I'm going to turn it over to her now to talk more about what this is going to look like.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Margie. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. As Margie was saying, I'm Emily. I'm the coordinator of high school initiatives for STARS, and I work out of Colby College in Waterville, Maine. So just to introduce you all a little bit to the STARS Boarding School Initiative in general, the aim of this initiative is really to provide motivated rural students greater access to AP, honors, college level courses, a wide range of extracurricular activities that might not be available in their communities, things like that. So STARS has partnered with 5 of the nation's leading boarding schools, and each school is committed to providing generous need-based financial aid for rural and small town students, as well as different types of targeted support designed for students from rural backgrounds. So the QR code here you can scan if you want to go straight to the website. Otherwise, you can access that from starscollegenetwork.org. Go to the next slide. So what are the actual schools that we're partnered with and where are they? The 5 boarding schools that STARS is partnered with are Phillips Andover, which is in Andover, Massachusetts. We have Choate Rosemary Hall in Wallingford, Connecticut, Deerfield Academy in Deerfield, Mass, Hotchkiss in Salisbury, Connecticut, and St. Paul's in Concord, New Hampshire. So I'm going to go right ahead and get some introductions from all of our panelists today. I'm going to start off with the student panelists, and then we'll head on over to our deans. So Juliet and Paige, can you unmute and just introduce yourselves, where you're from, and what boarding school you attend or graduated from?
Yeah, I can go first. Hi, my name is Paige. I'm from Norfolk, Connecticut, which is actually really close to Hotchkiss, where I went to school, and I'm currently a junior at MIT.
Hi, I'm Juliet. I'm currently a junior at Choate Rosemary Hall in Connecticut, and I'm from a really small town called Kasilof in Alaska.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're going to come back to our students in 1 second to ask them some questions. But first, I'm just going to have all the deans on today. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves, maybe where you're from and what boarding school you work at currently. You can go right in order of the names on the slide.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Grace McGee. I'm the Director of Admission at Choate Rosemary Hall, where I've been part of the community for a little over a decade. Originally, I am from Virginia and am happily living in New England.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dana Anselmi. I'm the Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid at St. Paul's School in Concord, New Hampshire. I'm also a graduate of the school, and I live here with my family and a school of 535 students, and we're all boarding. Everyone lives here together.
Hello, everyone. My name is Irby Mitchell, Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at the Hotchkiss School. I'm surprised that my head does not fit neatly into that circle, but it's a large head. I apologize. I'm in my 10th year at Hotchkiss and love living in the northwest corner of Connecticut and excited for this program, this partnership with STARS to identify talented young people from rural and small towns.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Ventry from Phillips Academy, Andover, which is in Andover, Massachusetts, about 30 miles north of Boston. And I am the assistant head of school for admission and financial aid. also a graduate of the school, and this is actually my 40th year at Andover. Look forward to getting to know you.
Hi, everybody. My name's Chip Davis. I'm the Dean of Admission at Deerfield Academy. That picture of me is quite dated. That's me enjoying COVID. I'm a little bit grayer up top. I haven't had a beard since 2020. I've been at Deerfield for a bit of a stretch. This is year 37. I've been a teacher here, a coach, and currently work in the admission office. I grew up in Boston and moved to a great rural environment. And we're a school of 650, and it's a privilege to be on the screen with all these great schools and colleagues, partnering with all of you.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for those lovely introductions. I'm going to stop sharing for a little bit and go into some of our questions for these students. They can have the floor. So my first question for the students is, why did you initially consider boarding school, and how did your experience compare to your expectations? So Juliet, do you want to start off?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually grew up homeschooled. I live in a really rural town in Alaska. And then I went to public school for 1 year as well. And I think my initial desire to go to boarding school was just really led off of diversity. So that was my main thing. I was pretty isolated in my town. I felt pretty isolated as I got older, started to enter my teenage years. I just wanted to be around more kids. And then also, when I went to public school, a lot of the classes that I was interested in, the topics I was interested in, there weren't a lot of options for taking those classes, and then extracurriculars, there just were a lot of limited options at my public school. So I started doing research at boarding schools. And then when I came to Choate, I would say that my expectations were a lot lower than I didn't know how much there was here. um, I had no idea how many options there was. I mean, talking just about like sports and classes and teachers and teacher support, all of that just exceeded my expectations in so many ways. And then the biggest thing for me coming to Choate so far has really been the people and getting to know so many different people from all around the world. I mean, the school has so many different people from out of country, international, all over the country. So I think that has really broadened my perspective and made the biggest impact on me.
That's awesome. Thank you. Paige, what's your experience?
Yeah, I initially applied to boarding school really just because I wanted more rigorous academics. It was like a very one-track mind. I also grew up like around 40 minutes away from Hotchkiss. So when I applied to Hotchkiss, I didn't realize there were like other boarding schools. I just knew about Hotchkiss. So I only applied there, and then I got lucky enough to get in, which was great. And then I think my experience was different in the way of I didn't realize that a lot of people prepared so rigorously to go to boarding schools. I thought it was going to be a lot more people like me who like just really wanted to be challenged, and so like kind of one off would apply to a school. And so I think like the structure and the pressures at times that came around like this like kind of being a path on the way to college and having like a much more planned out route than I personally had was something different. But I would say I also thought people were going to be a lot less grounded when I was initially applying to boarding school because of like that whole New England boarding school reputation. And I found just an awesome community of people at Hotchkiss. And I really loved that as different the places and the reasons that we were at the school we were at were, it was like they're like were my best friends. So yeah.
That's great. Yes, I think something you both touched on was just that opportunity to really broaden your horizons, not just academically, but also socially, which I don't think a lot of people realize when they're thinking about boarding schools. And I also think that leads us perfectly into my next question, which was what support systems in terms of like tutors, advisors, faculty, things like that, what has helped you succeed academically or in the dorms and on campus? And Paige, if you want to take this one first, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I think like a great example of this because like these boarding schools, they're flooded with advisors and like teachers who are very committed to their positions. Um, the thing that I really found was like not only are they very committed at like teaching their classes and do they love their work, but they really want to see students, like if a student is inspired or excited and working hard about a class, they want to see them succeed. And I think a great example of that is my sophomore year pre-calc teacher. I like bombed an exam, got like a 55. And he agreed or he like offered up to meet with me for like 1 hour a week privately so I could really get it because I had like told him like I love math, I like want to study engineering in college, and I was like failing pre-calc, so that wasn't seeming like it was gonna happen. um, and so I think just that support of not only you as a person and like your health and well-being that you'll find in your advisor in the dorm, but also in like your goals and your passions and your learning. That was support that I just simply don't think I would have gotten at public school, because of how committed and really just all into the community the teachers and the faculty at the school were.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Juliet, how about you?
That's so funny that you mentioned that, Paige, because my like story or experience that I also thought of right away when you asked that question is my sophomore year pre-calc teacher. Um, so I came in as a new sophomore. So academically, I was pretty worried about the transition because I didn't have that like freshman year kind of cushion year. And then I also came in from homeschooling. So coming in, I took like a placement test for math, and I was placed into pre-calc. But I was placed in a class with the head of the math department, so that she could kind of help me out. Just, just they were very aware of my academic background, and they put me in a class with someone who would be able to work with someone from any academic background. And then I struggled really bad academically with test anxiety in my first year. I had never really taken like intense tests or any kind of strong tests in my life before. So I even though in the class I would get all the questions right and I would do all the homework right, I would do really really bad on the tests, and I struggled with that for a long time. But one of the things that really helped me is my teacher's extra help sessions. So I would go to extra help twice a week, every single day, and I would be struggling a lot and my teacher would ask me, you do great in class, you have amazing participation. And something that I felt like because I didn't get great test grades, I maybe didn't belong in that class with other kids who were getting good grades. So I expressed that to my teacher. And I said that I just don't know if this class is right for me. And she really helped me to not drop out of this class. She said, I think this is the right class for you. Your participation is amazing. And she asked me, she didn't really tell me what I was thinking was wrong or right, but she asked me, why do you shake when you're testing? Why does this feel like a lot to you? What is in that anxiety? And this would go over and over and over. And I was really amazed by her consistent asking of like, what is your issue with it and how can I help you get through it? Every single week for a long time. And this year I have a different class, a different pre-calc teacher, and I still go to her extra help all the time just to hang out and do my homework. And she's still there to help me with my homework, which I think is just something really special about the teachers here at Choate. They really want you to succeed, but not just by getting good grades, by feeling comfortable in the class and being in the right place for you. And then one other thing that I also thought of when you asked this question is at Choate we have like assigned deans for every grade. So you will get assigned like one person as your dean that you can kind of will look over your schedule, go to. But I learned really quickly that all of the deans kind of know me. And even though I have an assigned dean, I really talk to all of the deans here, which I think is just so crazy because this is a school of like 900 kids. But there's like what I think like 8 deans, maybe 10 deans. Um, and the fact that they're able to really get to know every student and they're always around, they're in the dining hall. I mean, you really live with them. So it's so important that they're such caring people, and they have so much empathy for the students. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think, another thing that's kind of come up in a few of both of your responses is just how difficult that like transition can be coming either from, like you said, Juliet, from like homeschooling to a boarding school and getting used to tests, or like Paige was talking about as well with not realizing people were going to be so like rigorously prepared for boarding school. So I was just curious, in general, how did you find the transition coming from a rural town to a boarding school campus, whether that's academically or whether that's just, encountering students and extracurriculars that maybe you never did before? How was that in general? Juliet, do you want to start?
Yeah, definitely. So I talked a little bit about academics in the last question, but extracurricular opportunities. I was really surprised at how many options there are. So I was worried because I had never had the chance to play on a sports team before coming to Choate, that I wouldn't have that chance and I wouldn't be competitive enough to join many of the extracurriculars, many of the sports specifically, but then also like stuff like math team, debate team, because I had just never had any kind of exposure to that kind of stuff growing up. And I wasn't going to start at a varsity level or a very high level. So I was kind of worried about that when I came in. But I found that that really wasn't the case at all. I've started four new sports since I've been at Choate. I mean, this is only my second year. So I started water polo, squash, volleyball. I play a little bit of soccer as well here for the first time. And I play on a team with a bunch of other girls. We play competitively with other boarding schools, and it's at our level. So there are lots of different levels of sports here, and you can really start wherever you are. If you've never played the game, or if you're an athlete and you really want to succeed, there's a place for you, which I think helped me so much in my transition. That also helped socially because knowing that there's whatever you're interested in and whatever your level is, there is a place for you. And you'll find people who are have similar interests or at a similar level as you. So I think that really cushioned the transition for me in terms of extracurricular activities.
That's great.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think back to like when I first came in, and I played volleyball all 4 years. So like similar to what Juliet that said, I think having that like sports team transition in was very helpful just because it gave me like something to do every day that I knew I could do, even when academically it felt like this is like nothing I'd ever done before. And I think overall the academic transition was really it was really tough, but not in the ways that I expected. I think I came in with the mindset that I was going to be unprepared for it, which I don't think was always the case. And I think similar to what Juliet was talking about, like would have a lot of that test anxiety because I was like, well, I'm just like not meant to be here. And so I think it was mostly the thing that honestly helped my transition was a little bit of this like fire under me that I was like, okay, I don't really know if I'm like deserve to be here. And I like had all this imposter syndrome. So I just like worked really hard, which I don't think is a bad thing at like a place like these where there's just like so many opportunities. And I just tried to take advantage of everything I could. And then I think like as you start succeeding and as you get support from the people around you, you kind of realize that like not only do you belong there and are you like accepted there as a person, but you also are like, yeah, I can do this. And it like, I think it just is going to take time for anyone who kind of wasn't expecting to go to boarding school, like I said before, to adjust to it. But it's just like kind of character building, and you just got to build your confidence and really lean into it. And I think that's what helped me the most was just really leaning into everything I did.
That's awesome. Um, and sort of connected to like that transition piece, I think a lot of a lot of what people are maybe afraid of when going from a small town to a boarding school might be like, you're living with your family all the time and suddenly you go and you're staying somewhere else, or you're around all these friends for most of your life and then you're kind of leaving and not really around them anymore. So how do you stay connected with your family and your friends from home while you're at school? Paige, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Um, I would say my transition was a little weird. I was a day student for the first 2 years I went to Hotchkiss, and then I became a boarding student. So, the element of living with my parents, like I had a very like nice transition. But definitely like in those second 2 years, moving away was odd, but I think also kind of made sense in that I was already gone from home for like so much of the day, like much more than I would have been if I went to public school, that it felt more natural. I think that like in terms of staying like in touch with people from your hometown, my like first 2 years of high school were also COVID years. So that made the like summer after that I think like a lot of people typically like go home and can see a lot of friends and have that connection a little tough. And so I think I have like a couple confounding things that make my transition probably very different than Juliet's, but I'd say for the most part, like it's very similar to like going away to college for a lot of people is that now like I go home and like I see my friends when I can, but like you also make whole new friends that you have during school, and it's not that those friendships at home like matter any less, it just literally means you see them less often. And so I think that was really comforting to me. It was like especially talking to my sister who's 4 years older than me and was like entering college at the time. She was like, yeah, like my friendships are changing, but it's just because we're in different places, and that means that like the time we do get to spend together is like very well spent. And I found that it made me very, very grateful for like the time I got to spend around my family because there was like oftentimes less of it, which was sometimes nice.
I would agree about the piece where it's like you're making so many new friends. So sometimes it is easy to like get so busy and caught up in the transition. Um, to like forget to call all your friends back at home. But in terms of family, I think there's a lot of chance for me. I had never been like away from my family for a long period of time. So I called them often. And then I also have siblings around where I got to go and visit. And then there's a lot of breaks throughout the year where I also went home to see family. But then the other piece of like them, my family staying connected to me is that my advisor also so we have an advisor at CHO, which is just like a faculty who you're kind of assigned when you get here that kind of just helps you out, is a friend on campus, an adult contact. So my advisor know my parents and my parents know her and they have each other's numbers. So there was often times where my advisor would tell my mom I had something going on. She would reach out to me, oh, good luck with your test. How's your test going today? Good luck with your game. She would kind of know things about my situation that I didn't even tell her. And so we would also stay connected just by her knowing what was going on with me. I think sometimes when I would forget to reach out to my parents, the choke also encourages that a lot when you first get here. So they kind of remind you, call your parents. It's important to let them know what's going on. As excited as you are, they are excited too. So choke would remind me about a lot of that stuff, and I would then call them. So yeah, I didn't struggle with it too much. I mean, it's obviously a transition. It's a big transition. It's like going to college, like Paige mentioned, but I didn't struggle too much.
That's awesome. And I think my last question for you two is just what would you tell a student who's, considering boarding school or is going to go to boarding school and is just nervous about going away to school? Juliet, do you want to start?
Yeah. I would say lean into the nerves. I think that's expected. That's going to happen no matter who you are, no matter where you're from. The nerves are going to come when you're going, especially to high school. It's a little bit different than college. You're a little bit younger. Um, in terms of like advice as you maybe transition into boarding school or thinking about boarding school, I would say make sure you're leading with your own curiosity first, your own ambition to do it. As a student, or if the parents in the room, let your students lead the process with their own kind of ambition and curiosity. Because if you do that, you really will find the best opportunities at boarding school. There's so many things that you kind of need to be in tune with yourself and what you want and what you're curious about, just so that you can go out there and get it. And then it'll also come to you. Obviously, that's going to change throughout the years. Be very open minded as you come into boarding school. But yeah, lead with curiosity.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say my biggest piece of advice is to just really, there's going to be a lot of different pressures and anxieties. I know Julie and I have both touched on that, like as you come into school and as you come into any new environment. And I think what was most important for me was just really practicing a lot of gratitude and like be very grateful for where you get to, because not only does that eliminate stress, but it also like helps motivate you and can like help you feel a little good about yourself sometimes. And I think that's the biggest thing is like if you can just stay grateful for the opportunities that are around you, grateful that you're in a safe place surrounded by curious people and people who are really motivated to your well-being and your excellence, that will like drive you through any struggles. And I think it also helps with that connection of people from home. Sometimes like going to boarding school, like it can be hard, it can be stressful, but it like at times would sound ridiculous to my parents who work like hard labor jobs that I was like stressed over my Latin exam. And so keeping that gratitude of being there both like to yourself and when you're talking to your family, I think can really help with that transition and connection.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Juliet and Paige, for answering those questions. It was so helpful to hear about your experience. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the questions that I have for the deans who are here today. My first question is for Grace and Dana. How do you keep parents informed and connected while still encouraging students to build independence?
Fantastic question. And I think we heard a little bit from Juliet just about how that advisor and parent relationship is very important. I think sometimes we have an idea about what boarding school might look like, and parents may fear that they're dropping off their child and they're never going to hear from them again. But really, all the adults in the community encourage a partnership with parents. And that partnership looks different for every family, every student, but there is consistent and frequent communication taking place both from individuals, but also from the school in general. So I will say that parents receive, updates from advisors and teachers, program leaders from our campus. But they also will receive things like newsletters about what's going on, invitations to different events. And so we do engage parents in what is going on. We are fortunate that we live in the age of technology, right? We're on this webinar now. So oftentimes families who are perhaps far away from campus may leverage the opportunity to tune in to live stream games and things like that. But in cases where families are closer or have the ability to travel, they're often welcome to come to our games and community events as well. So those are the things that really stand out to me as really keeping parents up to date on what's going on, but also connected to the school community as well, and sort of partnering in that student support.
And I'll just add maybe two things. I think Grace did a great job of summing that up. One of the things that our schools are committed to when we have students from all over the world is ensuring that families do have access to our campus, even if it may not be financially accessible in their own way. And so we do invite families and dedicate some of our financial resources to bringing families to our campuses to engage and to meet face-to-face with teachers, with advisors, to get to know the friends and their families. And that's a big part of the experience. And then the other thing, I think as advisors, you heard about advisors from Paige and Juliet speaking about the importance of those folks in their life. Advisors are also in very close contact with the parents, and we rely on you as well to kind of keep us abreast of what you're hearing from your children. You know them best. We may have eyes on them all the time, but if they're calling home and they're having a hard time or they're tired. and letting us know that, and then we are right there checking in with them, knocking on the door, making sure everything's good. So we really partner with you to ensure that students are happy, they're healthy, they're thriving, and they're going to be challenges along the way. And that's where together we hope to navigate that by being the boots on the ground in their life while you may be a little further away. But our communities have a really wonderful relationship with all families.
Thank you both so much. I think that leads us really nicely into my next question, which is just about how do you create a welcoming environment for students from rural areas or small towns? And I'd love for Irby, then Jim, and then Chip to take this one, please.
I think a lot of what I think we do and schools do is similar around thinking about who the young person is coming into our communities, and thinking about how we support them. I think everything from ensuring that families have access to advisors, that if and but also ensuring that students have full access to the entire experience. Right. So there's a question later, I think, about financial aid, and I think all of these schools want to make sure that talented young people are able to pursue opportunities, whether it's a summer program experience or traveling abroad, that your family's financial situation does not get in the way of you having direct access to those meaningful, transformative experiences, right? So that's the first thing. The other thing is that this is true at Hotchkiss and true at all of these schools, is that I think we are all focused on your sense of belonging, quite frankly. My sense is that if you feel a deep sense of belonging, no matter what your background is, whether you're from 40 minutes away or from 12 hours away in a flight, that we want to work hard to make sure that when you arrive on our campus that we admitted you because we believe fundamentally that you should be here and that you will thrive and make meaningful contributions to the community. And that happens in a myriad of ways, right? And it doesn't begin when you step on campus. It actually begins in the admissions process, right? It begins perhaps even when you interview or when you receive that letter of admission, a letter of acceptance. The phone calls with alumni and current students and virtual sessions and parents. And there's all this work that's happening to ensure that no matter where you come from, rural and small towns specifically, but no matter where you come from, that when you step foot on the campus, there's a deep sense that you belong there. And Paige talked about it, right? I think she used the word imposter syndrome. It can be. I imagine it can be when you show up on a campus like this and you learn that you're surrounded by other high achieving students. The moment you learn that you perhaps didn't attend the school that had the nicest science facilities or the best athletic facilities, you question whether or not you can compete. But I think through your interactions with adults, the people who sort of helped you make the way here, you come to grips with the fact that you can compete and you will, right? Because the hardest part, I think, is not just about getting in; it's about thriving, right? So we're invested in that work, and I think that's why we're partnering together here. I think we all are committed to ensuring that you have the best possible experience at our schools and in life beyond.
Yeah, thank you, Irby. And I think I'll pick up where you just left off, which is we're open to newcomers at our schools. We admit students 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and some of our schools have a postgraduate program, which is for students who've graduated from high school, but who want to spend an extra year with one of our schools before they go off to college. And so we recognize that also students coming from small town and rural communities, if you're admitted to our schools, as Irby was saying, your families are sophisticated around the values that these schools represent. And what we stand for and what you believe in should be about the same as you begin to investigate these schools. So we're creating environments where students are, especially from small town rural communities, it's an intentional bridging of the cultural and sometimes emotional gaps maybe that students have. And we have lots of programming to support and, as Irby said, allow the students to thrive. So we take practical steps to make sure that there's outreach, early outreach after you're admitted, giving you information. We have tailored onboarding programming. We have community practices and ongoing evaluation with the ambition to develop each of our schools' general warmth into really this sense of belonging that Irby's mentioned, which is so important. So I'll turn it to Chip now.
All right, I'll see what's left there.
Yeah.
Thank you both. I'll get a little bit practical. I think, well, first of all, Paige and Juliet, you were great. And I love all the turns of phrase there, like leading with curiosity, how that helps you in a welcoming environment is sort of extending your hand into a new community. And you're going to get 3 to 5 hands back for every one that you put in. And that does stem from curiosity because it's, and as Jim mentioned, we're all schools that admit and enroll students in critical mass at every entry point. So if there are parents or students in the room that are, to Jim's point, if they're older than the ninth grade, of course, all of our classes start new in the ninth grade. That's a universally shared experience. So if you're leaning into your nerves, as Paige said, then so is everyone else, no matter where they're from. I think the residential systems that we use have a natural scaffolding of peer mentoring. I authentically believe that all the older students in our schools want to look after, the younger students. And I think, to be honest, I think all of our schools have improved in that, over the last generation or so. Those residential leadership positions are highly sought after. Those kids who then go on to college, who mentor younger kids, when those younger kids graduate, those 21-year-olds or 20-year-olds like Paige, they go back and watch those, mentees, if you will, step across the threshold at Hotchkiss or any of our schools. And somewhere in the middle of that first year, whether you had 10 minutes of homesickness or a few weeks, which either of which is, we're waiting for that. We know how to handle that. We are partners, as Grace said. You're going to cultivate 3 to 5 champion adults in your life from all different parts of your experience. And it's quite possible, we're all coming into a holiday break at our schools now. And when our kids go home, I think they would all claim that they know a significant percentage of their fellow students. And we're all of different size schools. And I think all of our schools feel smaller than they actually are. What Irby said, that idea of connecting to a second home, and it comes together.
That was great. Thank you all so much for that. And I think a few people have touched on this already, but I would love to hear from Grace and Irby about how boarding school experiences can translate into college readiness for students.
Yes, thank you for asking this question, Emily. And yep, hearing, from Paige, who's in a university setting right now, and Juliet sort of touched on this as well. I think that the experience of being on one of our campuses is very much akin to the experience of heading off to college, with, of course, many differences, as we heard about the support of adults and the structures in place that are designed to help pull out the very best in students so that they, are met with success. For me, I think the college readiness is in that experience and building skills to prepare for the next step. So certainly the idea of independence and being able to, navigate a class schedule or, work with a roommate, maybe just, decide how you're going to use some free time and in ways that are different than being at home is key. We heard a bit about the diversity of the communities here, and I think that cuts across so many different dimensions, but certainly what you will experience on a college or university campus is going to be a very diverse student body, and that is something that you would also experience on our campuses as well, and diversity of all kinds. You heard as well where we have international students here, so you engage with people from all over the world as well as all over the country. And that helps develop, of course, skills, in terms of respect and, building self-advocacy and all of that. And for me also, of course, academically. We heard about that from both students and just really being in a rigorous college-like environment, but still with very small classes and focused attention, the opportunity to explore as well. And so I think we all hear from our alumni again and again how prepared they felt for the college experience. And it is just such a testament to those skills that you're building while participating in the programs.
I think you got it all, Grace. I would only add that, from my perspective, I think the confidence building is what I see most. And I knew Paige when she was obviously a ninth grader, and I hope she won't be upset with me for saying this, but Paige was not the confident young woman that she is today when she was a ninth grader, and I had the opportunity to sit next to Juliet at a new admitted dinner, dinner for newly admitted students. So she clearly was not convinced by me and chose Choate. So I've seen both of these young women grow, and I think the confidence that we see today is what happens at these places because of the interactions that they have, the opportunities they're able to undertake. And so I think they arrive on these college campuses, quite frankly, not only prepared academically, but maturationally and just ready to like tackle it, right? And so armed with the courage to go ask to meet with faculty members for support, right? To show up at different clubs and organizations because they've had 3 to 4 years of opportunity to do it. And so that it feels very familiar to them, even though the landscape may be different. There's a lot of traffic in Cambridge, but a lot more traffic than there is in the northwest corner of Connecticut. But the confidence building that happens, I think, is pretty real across these schools.
Yeah, thank you both so much. I think that confidence building piece is huge. So thank you for hitting that. Next question is a little bit more practical, I guess. Irby, you touched on this a little earlier, but for Chip, Dana, and Jim, how is financial aid awarded, and what is something that maybe rural families should know about affordability for boarding schools?
Sure. I'll be brief, and I'll let my teammates join the effort. One piece of good news for all the parents on the webinar is that all of us use the same platform into level set, make transparent, and most of all, make the process, highly accessible, simpler than it used to be. It's a portal called Clarity. It takes, I think, about an hour to sort of share information. All of our schools use a few different methodologies to be able to give guidance to families who maybe in the course of an open house or an information session or an interview might say, look, this is an expensive proposition. What can these sets of schools do to make it affordable? Clarity's been a revolutionary platform for all of us. In other words, parents, you can know ahead of time. We all operate on the same covenant dates for notification, but we're happy to share, through calculators and other means to say this is what it's going to cost a family, and the generosity on this screen amongst these schools is incredible. And Irby touched on it a bit. there are kids from all kinds of means and backgrounds at our school. And the most important thing for us is to um, promote equity of experience, opportunity of experience. So financial aid is simply a means to get to our schools and to make that possibility reality. And I'll let someone pick it up from me, but it's really about the supplemental aid experience that allows your kid to go on a trip, um, museum visits, global trips, athletic trips, etc. So I'll kick it over to Dana and Jim for the balance of it.
Sure, I'm happy to jump in there, Chip, and it's the important part, as you mentioned, is the experience, and for us, tuition is often fully funded for families, who may not actually realize they'll qualify for full aid, and I'll let Jim talk more holistically about sort of how we think about financial aid and how important that is to our school and to the ethos of our communities. But I think the nuts and bolts for families to know when you arrive on our campus, if your need is assessed to qualify for things like a weekly stipend to enjoy pizza and food out with your friends occasionally, to get some Christmas gifts to bring home from the school store. We cover books, we cover medical expenses in many cases. There is so much thought that goes into sort of what the basic needs to experience campus, and then so much more. The trips abroad, the music lessons, the test prep, the tutoring for classes, all of that really is rolled into the full experience of our schools, and financial aid is committed to that full experience. So I hope that as you're thinking about our schools, you're recognizing that we think about your presence on campus as being critical, and our financial aid is designed in order to support that and to support the experience, not just the tuition. And Jim, I'd love for you to touch on the overall way that we can think about affordability.
So it is true that affordability is on the minds of all of our communities at our schools, including our heads of school and our boards of trustees, and I'm pleased to see that all of our schools have contributed substantially to increases in their financial aid budgets. For most families, the largest source of tuition support is a financial aid grant scholarship, which is a grant is money that does not have to be paid back. Some schools offer loans, but the idea is to make this accessible at our schools. And so the way awards are made is based on what you reflect in your application process. That includes some things like your household income. And much of what you describe on these applications, by the way, you can pretty much ballpark off the top of your head. At some point, there is a way through this Clarity platform that Chip mentioned that we can draft in your tax documentation, which we will need eventually, and sometimes additional forms are needed. But all of these schools have directors of financial aid that can help you walk through that process, and it is involved, and it does take about an hour, but most of the questions are simply off the top of your head, and we all use a similar kind of methodology to arrive at our grants. So you can feel confident also that your information is held in sort of very small confidential spaces with directors of financial aid and not shared kind of on our campuses. That's kind of a critical aspect of students on aid at our schools, where this information is private, and really the only way someone knows if you're on financial aid is if you tell them. We don't share lists. We don't pass around notes describing what students are on aid. So it's important to kind of get into the logistics of the financial aid application early if you can. It does take a little time, and your student will nag you if they fill out their admission application and you're behind on the financial aid application. In the decision to admit a student also includes a financial aid grant. And so that information comes at the same time. We know you all will be looking forward to supporting your students in college. And so we are mindful of that pressures that go along with supporting a student at boarding school. And to what Chip and Dana have both articulated, we're very interested in supporting all of the costs in a way that is manageable for families. So we hope you'll take the time to reach out and engage with us to learn more about financial aid. And these can be private conversations with our directors of financial aid.
All right, thank you all so much. I know it's almost 8, but I have one more question that I'd love for everyone to answer if they have a response for it. But what advice would you give to a family who is hesitant or unsure whether boarding school is for them?
I'll just say there are some professional enrollment management folks here, but I will always defer to the students. And so if you are curious, and we can get granular here, if you want to know, what's the science curriculum like? Or we have 2 volleyball players here. What's that volleyball season like? I would always defer to Paige and Juliet. I would always defer to a student at Deerfield because they're going to be authentic about it, and and this could be way out in front of an actual application. This could be tomorrow you found something of value on our webinar, and you reach out to one of us and you just say, I just want to talk to a student. Maybe that student is from an urban environment. Maybe they're from another country. Maybe they are from a small town, rural community. Just to meet more Pages and Juliets, I think will give you, and the parents that go along with our great students, I think that will be the best source of value to give you confidence to move forward.
I agree. I mean, I would say, learning more for sure. All of us in our schools put on lots of programs. We've got great resources on websites and things like that designed to introduce you to members of the community, including students. And I think that will be the greatest opportunity that we can provide is just to peel back the curtain a bit and to give you a sense of what that authentic experience is like so you can start to envision it for yourself.
We're all searching for students in the next generation who will come to our schools and flourish. And we believe that greatness is in you, and you should explore these opportunities and think about us. Thank you.
I guess in the famous quote of the great 20th century poet Drake, "You only live once. Take a hard look at it."
It's hard to top that one, Irby, or to follow it. No topping it. But no, to Jim's point, I mean, we just want to get to know you, and we hope that the information we have on our websites, videos, etc., is helpful. One thing maybe not to do, just to close things out too, is don't base your opinion on boarding school on what you see on TV, on some of the dramatic productions, Harry Potter maybe. While there are some themes in there, like togetherness and friendship, our schools are about so much more, and it's a really rich opportunity to engage in incredible possibilities that you don't even know are in front of you. So if you're curious, come take a look.
Thank you all so much. That was really great. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so I think I'm going to go ahead and close it out for tonight. But thank you again to all our deans and students for being here tonight. For anyone who attended, please feel free to visit the STARS website or Instagram to learn more about the boarding school initiative or any of the great schools who are on our call tonight. And thank you so much for being here. Have a great night.